TFA fam, we are back. Week 2, Thomas. Week 1 was what do they say? What I think they call it a heater. A heater?
We're on a fucking heater. It's official. It is continued. Thursday, 5 for 5, I think, with a first touchdown with Hawk, who was at plus 1,700.
Wow.
I'm killing college football already, too. I just need Colorado to win tonight to complete a nice little parlay action. We got Shedeur Sanders over 341.5 tonight as well, and another bet with Colorado minus 23.5. So we're feeling fucking good. We're making some money. To say we are up is a little bit of an understatement, Code, and we're gonna keep it going. And every time we do it, I'm just gonna fucking double it, just double it.
Yeah, thanks. I need to send a shout out to my bookie who made an ill-advised parlay bet that somehow paid off. So just it was a ridiculous week. I don't want to jinx it. We're gonna knock on wood here, but Thomas, let's just jump into it, buddy. Let's give the folks some more wins this week. Hit us with your first prop for the NFL Week 2.
All right. I mean, anytime you can hit a parlay where it's 14,360 odds is a good week. Last week, we started off with Calvin Ridley, a true degenerate. We had a degenerate week last week. And in honor of Calvin Ridley and him being a degenerate, we're going to go with Calvin Ridley again. 74.5, baby. There we go. Kansas City Chiefs. Fucking Ridley season is back, baby. Amon-Ra went 6 for 71. Josh Reynolds went 4 for 80 last week. Chiefs continue to just kind of they're not really that great against receivers. And there's a reason for that. You got to throw against them to keep up with them because they will score points. We have Kelsey back this year. Last year, Christian Kirk and Zay Jones had 173 yards against them in week 10 and then gave up 135 against the same duo in the playoffs last year. And newsflash, Calvin Ridley is an upgrade over Zay Jones. So last week showed us that Calvin has still got it. This is the highest over the week at 51. I expect both teams to be able to throw plenty, with Ridley leading the way for Jacksonville. Rinse and repeat. Calvin fucking Ridley season. Let's go.
Trying to remember who it was that we were just taking their over every single week until like it finally got adjusted into like the low 80s. It was like a year or two ago.
Tyreek.
Was it Tyreek? Okay. Yeah, I was trying to remember who it was, but there was a player we just kept like hammering the over because they weren't adjusting the line.
He was 8 for 8. He did not hit until the 9th week, I believe. But they're slow. And that's the good thing about Vegas is Vegas typically takes a bath in week 1. Week 2 and 3, they get a little bit better, but they still lose money. And then week 4, they make adjustments, and then the lines get a little bit better, especially with player props. So the player props are usually a little bit low there. And throughout the season, unders are normally a little bit better statistically wise, but overs early on that's when you want to be able to hit them. And yeah, Code, we hit an under. I'm sorry, I hit an under on Thursday. Which
you actually the surprising thing isn't you hitting it. The surprising thing is you even placing an under in the first place.
Correct. There we go. Yeah. So, good shit. What do you have this week?
Well, since you went back to the well for your first bet, I'm also going to go back to the well for my first one. And we're going to go Mac Jones under his longest completion. This is on DraftKings at 36.5. It was at 34.5 last week. We got close to that one. That one was close to ruining that parlay. It went to 32.5, and that was due to a Ramondre Stevenson 32-yard reception. I think Demario Douglas had maybe like a 23-yard catch, and then no other receiver, I think, had even over 20 yards. Now you're adding 2 more yards to it because Mac Jones went out and had, a 300-yard passing game against your Eagles, Tom. But now they're going to be going up against the Vic Fangio defense. They do a lot of too high, so that's going to limit those big explosive plays. Herbert last week would have went under this. It was Keenan Allen who had 36, so sitting just under it. And now you're telling me that noodle arm fucknut Mac Jones is going to be the one to go over 36 and a half. I don't think so. Going back to the well, taking the under.
There we go. I told Cody he could go back to it if he worked noodle armed fucknut in, and he did it beautifully. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm impressed. Ashton, we use combination DraftKings. I use and BetMGM. Cody does FanDuel and DraftKings. So we try and kind of spread it all over the place.
For the most part, I was just going to say, for the most part, the lines that we're going to be throwing out are going to be DraftKings lines. But there is a super helpful, if you just search like NFL player prop finder, there's a couple of them out there. You can go and you can find the best line. Like I was trying to think, Joshua Kelly, his rushing total is at like 49.5 on DraftKings, I think. But over on Caesars, it's at like 55.5. So it's always super, super smart idea to have multiple sports books so you can check multiple lines and get these different totals, especially when it comes to player props. Obviously, on like spreads and money lines and totals, it's going to be like generally the same across all of them. But like player props, you will get some different ones. So for the most part, what I'm going to be talking about anyway is going to be DraftKings. That seems to be the one that's most quoted, that people most use. So that's where I go. But I typically play on FanDuel, Prize Picks, Thrive, that sort of thing.
Yeah, and the other thing, it varies a lot with anytime touchdowns and first touchdowns. So, like for instance, Christian McCaffrey's at I think minus 160 for an anytime touchdown on DraftKings, minus 190 on MGM. So I'm going to get into another one where the differences they're a lot. You know what I mean? Like Amon-Ra, I think anytime touchdowns at even money, and he's a minus 130 at MGM. Saquon, I think, is minus 105 on DraftKings for an anytime, and MGM, I believe he's minus 130. So look around with certain bets like that. The yardage, for the most part, they're pretty close, but touchdowns, they tend to vary a little bit. I'm going to stick. This is a little bit different than we normally do. I'm going to stick with that Jacksonville, Kansas City game. You can do something called a head-to-head bet, head-to-head player bet, and Patrick Mahomes, Trevor Lawrence. There's two bets I like over there. I have money on one of them. I don't have it on the yardage. The yardage is 562.5. I don't have money on it. I still like it. That's at minus 110. I love the over of 3.5 touchdowns between the two of them. So you could have Mahomes getting 3, Lawrence getting 1. That's at minus 165. DraftKings, if you're on there, which is where the bet's available, they have a 50% boost on Sunday. I used my boost to get it, and that got it down to minus 111. I absolutely love that. I put the max on it. That's $50. As I said before, I expect plenty of passing in this game. I like both bets, but I'm taking the over for the touchdowns. Even if they don't get the yardage, I think they're going to get the touchdowns. This is an absolute fucking smash to me. And at minus 165, that's somewhat indicative of that. So if you get that boost, do it. If not, you could pair that in a parlay with another bet that you really like. But I absolutely fucking love this bet. It's a smash.
Then we got Shmoney Blue in here saying that I'm assuming that's Amon-Ra is plus 120 on FanDuel. So always worth checking out. If you have the ability to have multiple sports books, always a good idea to check multiple ones, especially when it comes to player props. Let's see, where do I want to go here for my second one? Let's go. Let's stay on brand. Let's stay on brand here. We're gonna go Sam Laporta over 35.5 receiving yards. You can actually get over 3.5 receptions at plus money on DraftKings. I think it's at like plus 105. I like both of them. Yards were the first one I saw, so that's what I'm going to go with. I had Higbee last week hitting the over in the same matchup. I'm going to take Laporta here as well. He didn't light it up by any means. I think he went 5 for 35, I believe, 5 for 39, something like that. But he had really strong and really promising usage, especially for a rookie. He had like an 81% route rate. 81% route rate. caught all 5 of his targets. Now gets that matchup against the Seahawks, who allowed 17 and a half yards per reception to the Rams tight ends last week. That was, I think it was only 4 catches. Hopkins went 1 for 21, and then I believe Higbee had like 3 or 4 for it was like 49 yards or something like that. But that's they've been bad against the tight end for the past couple of seasons. Last year, I think they allowed the second or third most receiving yards to the position. I think that continues. The Lions also have the 4th highest implied team total on the slate as well. So looks like this game, especially from the Lions side, should get pretty interesting, especially for fantasy purposes. So Sam Laporta over 35 and a half receiving yards and over 3.5 catches at plus money. I like both.
So good transition here, by the way. You did well with Laporta last week. You had him for over his yards. That was for the Thursday night game, so we didn't get to include it in the show. But we had it on the Discord there. We put all our bets in there every single week. I'm going to stay in this game. I've got 2 more bets. Amon-Ra over 74.5. I don't have a lot to say. Last week, Puka and Tutu both had 119 yards. Amon-Ra is the fucking show in Detroit. I expect that trend to continue in Chicago or in Seattle against Seattle. I'm sorry. I believe they're home, right? That's their home opener. So I expect that to continue there. And then the other bet I really like is Jahmyr Gibbs over 40.5 rushing yards. That's up from 38.5. This should basically be what we saw with the Eagles this week on Thursday. Last week we had Gainwell kind of plod and get 78 yards on like 16, 17 carries. He was workmanlike, not explosive. This week, Swift absolutely popped off. Last week, we saw Monty do the same thing Gainwell did, and Gibbs just popped off the damn screen whenever he got the ball. Good coaches make corrections. I think Dan Campbell is good enough to recognize that he needs to give more opportunities to Gibbs. Last week, he went 7 for 42, so even if he doesn't get that amount of action, I think he's going to get at least 10 carries this week. So I'm going to go Gibbs there for the W there over 40.5.
Yeah, I like Gibbs receiving total as well. Just pulled up. That's sitting at 26.5. And then the total for rushing and receiving, Gibbs is sitting at 71.5 and Monty is at 72.5. And they Campbell came out last week after the game, so that was by design that Gibbs didn't get like a boatload of carries. But if you watched it, I love David Montgomery. I'm not saying anything about him. I've loved him since he came in. I think I had him as my number 1 running back for dynasty purposes whenever he came out. That was the year Jacobs and Sanders came out. But anyway, whatever. We're gonna get off the rails here. But it's clear who the best or the most explosive running back is for that team. Like Monty's still going to get the goal line work. He's still going to be the short yardage guy. He's probably still going to end up leading this team in carries at the end of the year. But they have to get Gibbs more involved.
Yeah, and the biggest concern with me as far as the receiving yards was last week. Montgomery still had more routes run. So I was just, and the discrepancy was just noticeable to me when I looked at it. I don't have it in front of me, but I remember thinking like, what the fuck are they doing? So that's the reason I didn't include the rushing and receiving, which I still feel good about, but I feel better about the rushing.
Got it. For my last one, I'm going to go. I took Joe Burrow on the under on his passing last week. I'm going to take the
over. Did that hit at all? Did that hit?
It was close. It was a sweat. So his line last week was actually the same as what it is now. I don't know what it opened at, but I was hoping it was going to be a little bit. It was going to be lower than where it is right now. 265.5. That's what the line was last week when I talked about it from DraftKings. I took it. I still ended up taking it at 260.5 on FanDuel. And then he went for 82. So it was really close. We had a bit of a sweat, but I do think this is a prime bounce back spot for this entire team. Burrow is averaging 311.5 passing yards against the Ravens. Last year, he actually did not go over this total. I think he was in the low 200s. But in 2021, he had games of over 400 and over 500 yards. Now the Ravens are going to be without Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Williams. two big omissions from that defense. The total here is sitting at 46.5, and the Bengals have the 5th highest implied total. Really like the spot for Burrow. I don't see a ton being done with the run game. Mixon didn't look all that good last week. Not that any Bengal did, but I think as a spot we're going to see Burrow come out slinging around. I think he's going to go over that 265.5.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, especially with the way that their secondary is banged up. Good news for everybody. Cody's done, and I have about 1 million more bets to get through, so you're going to hear me talk a lot. Bad news for you is you're going to hear me talk a lot, so we got going that. Next bet, Brees Hall over 30 to 37.5 rushing yards. That's at minus 135. Yesterday, that was 36.5 at minus 110. I can't figure the math, but that's good. In case you didn't hear about it, Cody, Aaron Rodgers lasted all of 4 plays this week. Did you know that?
I think I saw something about it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the equivalent of Abe Lincoln basically buying a ticket to a play he got assassinated to. Like, he didn't even get past the booth. You know what I mean? So that's bad. Sucked. Not going to lie. Good news, though. Brees Hall did not, in fact, suck. We saw very early on, he popped off that 83-yard run, finished 10 for 127 on the day. I don't give a shit that they're playing Dallas. Brees is talented enough to have a few big plays, and I think the Jets defense is good enough to keep them in the game. They're going to want to protect Zach Wilson against the Dallas pass rush, so they're going to hand the ball off quite a bit. Dalvin, Brees are going to get work, so I expect a heavy ground approach there from the Jets. Brees is going to get volume. So even without a 20-plus yard run, I think he hits that number. All right. Nothing else to add there, Code. Okay. Good job. Appreciate it.
Well, you said you had 1 million. I didn't want to, we can't.
I do.
We
Well,
have to get to Walito's million.
I'd appreciate an interjection now and again. This is one of my favorite bets here. Keenan Allen over 71.5 yards. That's at minus 115 on DraftKings. Last week, Michael Thomas, Jesus Christ, 61 yards. Congratulations, Polito. Olave, 112. Rashid Shaheed, 89. The Titans secondary is what we call below average. Last week, he went 6 for 76 on 9 targets. He's going to have more room to operate. And this is one of those bets I just don't need to talk that much about because it's too fucking obvious to me. Bijan over 55.5 rushing yards. He went 10 for 56 on the ground last week. Tyler Algier went 15 for 76. I expect that split to dwindle as we get along in the season. They're still going to use Algier. I have no doubt about that, but I think it's going to flip to Bijan being the guy. We're going to transition a little bit over here to one of Walito's bets. You are correct. 2.5 receptions should be free money. I don't know what the odds are on that. But yeah, that's free money. Let me see what else I got here. I don't have write-ups on any of these, but I like Tyreek over 81.5. Walito had it at 79.5. Not sure what site that's on. Puka receptions over 4.5. That's at plus 114 on DraftKings right now.
Yep.
Rashad White carries 13.5 or 12.5, depending on what site you're looking at. Listen, he might only get you 40 yards, but they showed you last week they're going to give him the ball. He's the show there. Another bet I have, Jags over 6.5 points in the first quarter. First touchdowns I have so far, Bijan at plus 650, Keenan Allen plus 950, Ayuk at plus 1,000. I like CMC in that game as well, so plus 450. Anytime touchdown, Amon-Ra, that's plus 100. I believe somebody said it was at plus 120 on FanDuel. Saquon minus 105. That's against the Cardinals. We've got a kicker prop, so because we need to do a kicker prop every single week. Matt Prater over 5.5 points. That is, he had 3 field goals last week. The Cardinals they're not a great team. Their defense actually looked surprisingly good last week. And they should be able to move the ball at least to get into field goal range against the Giants. And I have a parlay for anytime touchdowns, Saquon, Amon-Ra, CMC, and Bijan. And those are my bets that I'm giving to you right now. And I'm sure as soon as we're done here, I'll give you guys about 14 more. Because I'm a
Yeah, make
degenerate.
sure you guys are jumping into the Discord. The link will be in the description. I'll drop it in the chat right now if you're not already in there. And please make sure to hit us with a like and a sub if this is your first time checking out the prop show. But I'll just throw out a couple here as well. Another one I like is Zach Wilson under 32.5 longest completion. His ADOT last week was the fourth lowest among the 32 NFL starters. Now, obviously, some of that could have been due in part to coming in, not expecting to come in. But I still think against this defense, it is a little worrisome with Diggs and how much he tries to go after the ball. So, like, that one could, break if that's a Garrett Wilson type catch where Diggs is trying to go after the ball instead of, trying to go after Garrett Wilson. But I still like the under 32.5. Bijan over 54.5 rushing yards. I really like CMC over 69.5 rushing yards. And then Stephon Diggs, first touchdown. I don't even know what his odds are, but I like it. I think the Bills are going to try and come out and just absolutely smack around the Raiders after that. Just absolute embarrassing loss. Thank you, Josh Allen. Really appreciate your participation in my parlay last week. But Diggs over 77.5 receiving yards. You talked about Keenan Allen. I like Mike Will as well. You were mentioning Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed going off against that Titans secondary. I think is going to be a Mike Williams type game. I didn't see what the odds are on this. This is definitely another reason why you should jump in the Discord because we'll be dropping more of these in there after this. But I think Mike Williams potentially, like if you want a long shot, I think Mike Williams most receiving yards of the week is something that's in play, definitely in the game. Chris Olave was at 69.5 receiving yards. Nice. I really like that one as well. So let's go ahead and we'll go through Walito's. Gibbs over 70 rushing and receiving. Yeah, we talked about that one, Mark. Well, Tom talked about the rushing. I like the receiving. So we're both on the same page there. But here we go. Time for the Walito show. 61.5 rushing for ETN. I'm mild on that one. Obviously with them getting Chris Jones back is going to be a big addition to that defense. I hit ETN on the over last week. Tom, you have any leaning on this one?
I mean, anytime you get ETN, you're one play away from hitting it. So last week I had him on the longest rush. You had him on his regular, so he's going to hit explosive plays. I'm like meh about it. I don't hate it. I don't love it. It doesn't jump off the page for me. There's other things I like in that game a little bit more. But I can, it's Travis Etienne. He can get that in one play. So I'm not gonna say no to
that. Kenneth Walker over 60.5 rushing. This one I don't like.
I don't like
going up against San Fran.
I don't love that.
Or wait, Detroit rather. Sorry.
No, Detroit. Well, Detroit too. That's another one. They had a good
missing both their starting offensive tackles.
Yeah, I'm not a fan yet. I want to see Kenneth Walker get going a little bit before I get there.
Lamar 46.5 rushing.
Easily attainable. Don't love it. Don't hate it.
Pollard over 70.5. I actually like the under on this one. It was one I was going to talk about. The one thing that does worry me a little bit here is Pollard hitting one of those explosive runs. And, obviously if they get up and they're leading in this game, but we saw what they did last week, man. That defense is super fucking legit. Like it's really a shame that we're not going to see the Jets with the full season of Aaron Rodgers, considering what that defense did to completely pull that game off. It was just, that was a really, as shitty as the game was, it was a fun game to watch just because that defense was just suffocating. So I actually like the under on this one, but like I said, I didn't feel comfortable making that an official pick. So I didn't go with that one. Nick Chubb over 80.5. I do like this one.
Cleveland is playing
Steelers. And the Steelers are
I
going to be
like that.
without Cam
Yes.
Hayward, which is a
Hayward.
really
He's on
big
IR.
piece. Yeah, that's
Yep,
a
like
really
that.
big piece to that run defense. Diggs are receiving. We already talked about it. Ridley, you talked about as
Good
one of
about
your
that.
picks.
Good about that.
DK 64.5.
Good with that.
You already talked about Keenan. We talked about Bijan a little bit. Evans over 53.5 receiving. That's the same line as Godwin on DraftKings as well.
Right, they're playing against the Bears? Or no, they played the Bears last week.
Yeah. No.
They're playing against the Bears this week?
Yeah. Yes. Bears.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good with that.
Now, Walito, I will say that I didn't say I didn't like Ayuk. I said I liked Debo better. And obviously that didn't work out either. So that's what happens. That's what happens when I say nice things about the Steelers. That's just
true.
That's what happens. Garrett Wilson, 48.5 receiving yards. What a line. What a depressing line.
Yeah, no, I think he's gonna get that. Even with Zach Wilson, I still think he's gonna get it.
Garbage time.
Well, it might not even be garbage time because honestly, the Jets' defense is that good, and if Zach Wilson can come out knowing he's the starter, where they have a game plan for him, Diggs will still get beat deep. Like for all the interceptions he has, he still gets beat. And Garrett Wilson is a fucking mathematician when he runs routes. You know what I mean? He's fantastic. Yeah, I said
a mathematician.
He's like the fucking Rain Man. Like equations come up in his head when he's like, I'm going to do an out route at 8 yards and then I'm going to do an up right here. And this guy's going to turn around and fall over. And that's math. So he'll do that. So I think even Zach Wilson can hit him on something like that. Javonte over receiving, I don't know.
I like this one. If he has the same type of usage in the passing game that he saw last week, we saw the same type of usage in the one preseason game. He had 4 catches for 5 yards last week. If he just gets 3 yards per reception, he's going to hit this. So, Walito, I don't like how much I'm agreeing with you, but I'm agreeing with you. We're not talking about Rashid Shaheed on this show. Allen Robinson, I do like the over on this one at 31.5 with
that's fine.
With Deontay Johnson out. If A-Rob is going to be playing the slot the way that he was last week, really like this over. Mark Andrews, 3.5 receptions.
Obviously. Good find. I don't know what the odds are, but yeah.
I will pull it up. What do you think about what was the one I just put up there? I think
Troutman.
I kind of like Troutman for DFS purposes, just because he's cheap. Obviously, Dulcich.
Obviously, he's cheap.
Yeah.
Who's
looking up? Mark Andrews. Minus 160 at 3.5.
Yeah. That's why I said, yeah, obviously, I don't know what the odds are. So it doesn't pay a lot, but if you can use a boost or put it in a parlay with something, like if you do that in a parlay with the Trevor Lawrence, Patrick Mahomes over 3.5 touchdown thing, I like it a lot.
Seems to you over 103.5 total yards.
Yes.
It's really throwing me off. You keep calling him K9. Walito. I'm used to KW3.
Is that Kenneth Walker?
Is he number 9? I don't know. I always call him KW3. 13.5 carries for Walker.
Yeah, he's not a dog. He's a person. What is this?
And when I see K9, I also think of Kenneth Murray, the linebacker.
Yeah, I get that.
Just really throwing me off.
Yeah.
Akers over 9.5 carries. I don't know.
I mean, they're still giving him the fucking ball. I don't know. Right?
Gibbs over longest rush.
Yep.
Lamar over 14.5. I do like that one. That one feels a little bit low. 16.5 for Saquon.
I don't know. But it's their line.
13.5 for Brees.
I do like that one.
I do like that one. I think Brees's rushing total is well within, because if the Jets are going to do anything, they're going to have to get the ground game going. And I think Brees's
Right.
total is sitting at like 37.5. And obviously,
Yeah.
like
That was one of
that
my
seems
bets.
bonkers. That seems fucking bonkers for what he did on 10 carries and
Right.
I think like 49% of the snaps. So
Yeah, he's
that's one
37.
I should have included, but good
Well, I
pull though,
included
Leo.
it, so we're good. That was one of my bets.
Well, I don't always listen to you. So Tyreek
I was
over
like, what
26.
is this? We talked about it. I had like a 5-paragraph order about it. You know what I mean? Like we had an intro, we had a middle, and we had a conclusion and everything. I just blacked the fuck out. I didn't listen to you, Tom. Don't worry about
Yeah.
it. Anytime you can get Tyreek, yes.
I like
Long's
Waddle this
perception.
week. I like Waddle this week.
Yeah, I mean I like Tyreek every week. And I like Waddle every
week. It just
week.
feels like, that this could be a situation where old Hoodie just sells out to stop Tyreek, especially after the week he had last week. I think this could be a Waddle week.
So, Tyreek has historically his splits against the Patriots, like he fucking destroys them. Like Bill is like I'm pretty sure he just sits there in his hoodie in the offseason, like having nightmares against Tyreek Hill. And then Tyreek Hill gets traded into his division. He has to play him twice a year. He's like, I'm gonna fucking cap that. I just fucking hate him. You know what I mean? Like Tyreek burns his ass every single day. So I'll take Tyreek against Pats.
Mahomes and Trevor Lawrence to have a 50-plus yard completion at 1,300. I mean, the odds are interesting, right?
Who's Mahomes throwing it to for a 50 yard?
This is one. Justin Watson over 7.5 receiving yards. He he is playing like the deep threat. He had the highest ADOT among all receivers last week.
Did you say 7.5?
7.5. His ADOT last week was 26.5. One catch. I don't know what his reception total is. I didn't get to see that on DK. I actually have that pulled up right now. He doesn't have a receiving total, but I mean a reception total. His
for
yards,
1,300, I like it. I'd put like $5 on it or something like that. Nothing crazy, but yeah.
Andrea,
so
appreciate you rolling through. Have a good night to you as well. Thanks for stopping by. Kelsey, 6.5 receptions. I saw this on DK at 7.5, and the under was at like minus 160 something, 180 something. Like it was really heavy to the under. I kind of like Kelsey under 78.5 receiving yards as well. I just don't think that like in this first game back that he's just going to get completely peppered with targets. I don't think he's going to have the same type of snap share. I just don't think it would be smart to do that. Like we saw what this offense looked like without Travis Kelce. Like we thought it was going to be bad last year with Tyreek Hill. Obviously they were fine. Then you remove Travis Kelce from this whole thing. I don't know, man. I don't think he's going to get the same workload in this first game back. I don't.
So I don't know. I'm leaning towards he's going to be close to it. But that's why I stayed away. Like I wrote it down because the numbers are actually somewhat reasonable. But at this, I want to see it back. I want to see how the offense looks before I put any money on it. So, I like a little bit of evidence before I see something. I like to see some trends and whatnot. He's still going to get work. But I didn't want to touch Kelce this week. If you're going to touch Kelce, I would touch him for a touchdown because he's still that red zone guy. If you can go for anytime touchdown, but I'm not touching receptions or receiving yards.
Now, normally we don't answer start sits on the prop show, but I do want to get your thoughts on Higgins versus Metcalf for Two Hype.
Oh man, they're fucking close, man. I'm gonna go Higgins just because I feel like there is an overcorrection when things happen like they did last week with Higgins getting a goose egg. So I'll go Higgins there, and then plus the secondary is just really banged up for Baltimore.
And then I would go Dillon over Algier. I wouldn't. I don't want to chase the 2 touchdowns that Algier had last week.
Yeah,
I still think he's going to get work. I don't think Aaron Jones plays, so I would go Dillon.
Yep.
Living proof coming over from the start sit show. Zay over 3.5 receptions. We talked about Bijan already. We're on that. The odds aren't great. I think at DK that's been juiced to minus 160 at this point. But his rushing yards are still like minus 125. I think I like his rushing yards as well. How do you feel about Zay here? Obviously, last week Christian Kirk was not involved at all, really. I think I only had like a 60-something% snap share, maybe 70%. Hi, no, you're good. Normally, I throw the answers into the chat, but that one was interesting for me, so I want to get Tom's thoughts. You're good. No problem. No problem.
No worries.
You didn't throw us off. We're professionals around here. Very
Yeah,
professional.
Yeah. No, and if we don't know, we're just gonna bullshit our way through it.
Oh, Zay Flowers. See, Zay Flowers over 3. I'm with you. I like his receiving. I like his receiving total a little bit better than the receptions, but like the receptions are still fine.
The receptions over 3.5, I like that.
Yeah. Now this one. Proof. 6K to you put 6K on a bet. We need to help living proof out here. All right. 3-leg money line parlay. Georgia minus 160, Bills money line, Cowboys money line. Do I cash out? Don't like the Bills this season, but West Coast team playing in Buffalo off a bad loss, high total. Could cash out for 2.5.
Georgia.
Do the Bills? They play at the same time.
No, the Bills play early, I think. The Bills are one of the early games, and Dallas is a late game against the Jets. I have a parlay with the Bills. Hold on.
I would wait. I would wait until after the 1:00 games if you could. Because I don't like the Cowboys are actually the ones that scare me. I don't think the Raiders are the ones that are going to go in there, like you said, West Coast team traveling. I don't think the Raiders are going to be the ones to go in and to upset the Bills. Like I said earlier, talking about Diggs, I like Diggs on his receiving. I like Diggs for anytime or first touchdown. I think they go out and just try to absolutely obliterate the Raiders. I don't think they have the defense to stop them. So if you are going to wait for the cash out, I would wait until after the 1:00 game.
Yeah, no, I have a parlay with the Bills, the Niners, and the Chargers. So I feel pretty good about the Bills, especially against the Raiders. I think they're the second biggest favorite this week. First or second. They're up there. So don't do anything like Cody said. Let it ride.
By the spread?
Yeah. Spread and the money line like that. I think they're minus 340 or something like that.
So I don't have the money line in front of me, but the spread has moved to 8.5. Opened up at 7.5, moved to 8.5, but they are a half point behind the Cowboys at -9.
Yeah, that's the other one. So what else we got?
That's it, man. I would so 6.5 to pay 15. Could cash it too. I'm not. I wouldn't take that loss right now. Proof. I don't think. I just don't see.
Is he saying he could cash 2.5, as in he could get 8.5, like 8.5 now? Like, what's your cash? Is it 8,500 or is it 2,500? So that's my confusion on that. I think he's saying it's 8,500. And if that's the case, I'm cashing after the Bills game.
Yeah, I would cash after the Bills game. I don't think the Raiders are going to be able to pull that off. Jacoby Myers banged up.
All
Can
right.
get 8.5
So,
now. Okay.
all right. So,
Math.
yeah, I would wait till the Bills. Let it ride a little bit, man. You took that for a reason.
Yeah,
And I like it.
You took it. You said you don't like the Bills. You took it. Put 6K on it. So
Let it ride. Unless you need $2,500 to buy like a new carburetor, who knows?
yeah, I mean, there's lots of reasons why you would, but I would wait. God, I'm gonna feel like such a fucking asshole.
No, you're not. No, you're not. Bills are gonna win.
I would.
I mean, you're gonna feel like an asshole regardless. So let's be honest. So that's good.
But
for
I don't
you.
want to feel like an asshole because of somebody else. I'm fine feeling like an asshole because of myself. But,
well, you make me feel like an asshole every day I'm alive. Well,
you don't really count. See, okay. Anyone that's not named Tom, I don't want to be the reason why of the asshole. Anyway, this is gonna get weird. I can already feel it's getting weird. We appreciate all you for rocking with us. We're gonna rack up some more dubs. Please make sure to hit us with a like and a sub. If you're interested, jump into our Discord. Absolutely free, no strings attached, anything like that. We'll definitely be throwing some more in. I need to throw in some defensive props. I want to look at some tackle props I did not get to yet. So I'll definitely be throwing those in. Thank you guys for joining us. Let's get some dubs. Let's keep the hot streak going, and we'll talk to you next week.